Vinaka, and a warm Pacific greeting to everyone who is listening in today. Welcome to the second webinar for Pride Month, an initiative of the U.S. Embassy Youth Council in partnership with the U.S. Embassy. So, some of you joined us for the first webinar that happened last week. We had Rhonda, Mariana Ilevu, and Krishnil Sen talking about the LGBT movements in Fiji and the Pacific and the priorities of the movement till date. This week, we are joined by Joey from Tongan Leiti's Association and Tebeo from Bimba in Kiribati, who hopefully will be able to join us later. Our focus tonight is COVID-19, mental health, and the LGBT community. So we'll listen from our two panelists on how the community is faring in the two island nations and expand on the work that they and their organization do. Before we start our webinar proper, I want to highlight that our topics may discuss some sensitive topics around mental health. So we are asking that if you're joining into a live session or on the YouTube for the recording, please practice self-care. We'll ask our panelists to highlight some contact persons in their countries later on so that you could reach out to them should the conversation trigger some emotion or trauma that you'd like to seek support for. Remember, you can always send in your questions that you want us to ask to our panelists and that we could post for you. We are keeping our mics on mute for security purposes to not have hackers in the conversation. So you're always welcome to send in your messages through chat to myself or Talay or any other co-host will then forward that to me. So with that, I would like to invite Erin Cousins, who's a political officer at the US Embassy, to give her opening remarks. Erin?
Good evening, everyone. Bula Vinaka. Thank you so much for allowing me to just have a couple minutes to say hello and to offer my greetings to everybody here and my appreciation for both of the panelists this evening. I am Erin Cousins. I am the political officer at Embassy Suva. We do cover all five countries, including Tonga and Kiribati, as well as Nauru and Tuvalu. So I work on this issue, of LGBT rights in all five of those countries. I am also the Embassy Suva post representative for an organization that's known as GLIFA, which is Gays and Lesbians in Foreign Affairs Agencies. So I represent foreign service officers and other employees at Mission Suva who identify with the LGBTQ community, to make sure that our voices are heard both in the workplace as well. I know that last week the folks who were here got to hear from Becca Archer-Nepper, who is our public affairs officer, and she highlighted some of the work that the public affairs section does. But in general, Embassy Suva is extremely committed to highlighting issues around LGBT discrimination, against issues that might come up in terms of things like housing, in terms of health discrimination. The Biden administration has made this a priority going forward for the next 4 years, and we're really excited to get working on some of those issues here in Fiji and in all five countries of accreditation. One of the issues that I think is near and dear to all of our hearts is health in the LGBT community. And I think during COVID, I'm really glad this Talanoa is happening, because I think COVID is exacerbating a lot of already existing underlying inequities in terms of sort of health disparities and things like that. I'm really, really pleased that we get to have this conversation together. And I know that the embassy has worked with both of these organizations before, with Tonga Leitis and with Bimba. So I'm really pleased that we have panelists from both of those organizations. And very, very happy to also be a point of contact for anybody who has particular issues that they'd like to discuss with the embassy as relates to LGBTQ issues here in Fiji and in all the other four countries as well. And I think I'll stop there, but I'm definitely available if anybody has any questions for the political side of the work that we do at US Embassy Suva. And I just want to wish everybody a happy Pride. I know, at least in Fiji, we're not celebrating quite the way that we would like to be given the current COVID outbreak, but I hope everybody is safe and healthy during this Pride season. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin, for that. And as you have heard, you are free to reach out to Erin if you want to speak on any of the issues that her department or her role covers. And she has said that she does work on LGBT in the region through the US Embassy. So please feel free to reach out to her. We still have Joey with us only, and that is all right, because I'm sure Joey has a lot to share with us. We'll go straight into the conversation. And to start off, maybe I could ask Joey if they could introduce themselves, give us an idea of who Joey is. I'm sure because we've got people joining in from the region, some of the audience may not be aware of who Joey is, a background on the organization that she represents, and the pronouns that she would like us to use. I'm assuming that she's the right pronouns that I'm using. So Joey, please.
Thank you very much, Abdul. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Um, well, Maloilele, everyone, and good evening from the Kingdom of Tonga. My name is Joey Joleen Mataele, and I am the co-founder and executive director of the Tonga Leitis Association. My pronouns is she, her, herself. And I actually live here in Tonga. I've been living here all my life. But the work that I do is mainly on the needs of the LGBT people here in Tonga. However, the Tonga Leitis Association started in 1992. So this year will be celebrating our 29th year, I think, or something like that, or 28. Work here in Tonga, when we talk about COVID, unfortunately, I wasn't here. I was actually in the Solomon Islands when COVID started. And I went there right after our consultation for our legal reform to deal with a murder case that was happening, and also show the ladies in waiting. So on my way back to get transit back to Tonga, the borders of New Zealand and Tonga were closed. So I couldn't return until about March of this year. So I've been away for about a year and 1 month. But however, even though I wasn't here, the team, the Tonga Leitis Association team, was still able to carry forward quite a lot of our work. Even though there were a lot of curfews and all that, the team was still able to continue, a lot of the programs to the outer islands, and also the main island of Tonga, and within the 5 districts here in Tonga. The only thing that really affected us is majority of our workers, majority of our members are all, most of them are hospitality workers or hospitality staff of hotels, restaurants, and all that. And I think about 85 or 90% of them were actually, lost their job because of COVID, and until, and then what we did was, because of the continuance of the projects that we had, which is the consultations that needed to be carried on to all the outer islands, and also the HIV testing, the HIV awareness programs, we brought them in to go to be involved in those, and even though it was all volunteer working, but it was something to get them out, so they don't dwell on having no job. At least with the projects that we have, they're able to get a bit of money out of everything that they, on those trips. So it was quite hard at first, but because even though I was away, we were constantly going through calls, international calls or messengers and Zoom calls with the team. Um, but one thing that was very important for the team to do was to actually have a day of relaxation, self-care, and a well-being session that was led every single with the Miss Galaxy of 2019. We were able to get a bit more resource, help out with any other funding that was that was given. Um, and they were able to treat themselves into a good relaxation day, and while they were traveling throughout the outer islands. However, one thing that was quite a challenge was when they did the curfew. The curfew was from 8 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, so there was no way that our programs could continue. But because of the continuance work that we good relationship with the Ministry of Health, and also we I had to actually contact from Australia to the army and also the police to get passes from the Ministry of MADAC for the for the team to continue the work, even though the curfew is on. The work will still be able to be done or taken to the outer islands and also the villages. And not only that, but I think uh, one thing that we see that was very successful was the team were able not only just able to carry the work, keep going even during the time of COVID, but it actually employed majority of our members that lost their jobs. And then when they finally, about August or around October, sorry, then the government of Tonga sort of eased the curfew time. But one thing that we noticed, during COVID was the amount of people that actually believed things that were on social media. When the first case in Fiji happened, everybody just went berserk. They actually, uh, instead of talking about, how sad it is that one person is affected, and just because that person, with due respect to that person, was an LGBT member, they they totally just named everyone else in the community that we were the cause of the COVID, and it reminded us of how we started in 1992, when people were starting to call us AIDS when AIDS started in Tonga. So, preachers, some of the evangelists, preachers were preaching against us, that we were the cause of COVID. This is, God punishment to the world, and all that. It was really heartbreaking, to actually see that kind of mentality be repeated. Especially, it's like history is repeating itself. But we were able to overcome that, just by avoiding answering back. or fighting against those hate messages and outcasts. So all we did was to, we told everybody, all the members, to just avoid answering or going, into social media and argue with people that does that. And in order for them to, to not talk about it, we might as well just leave it alone. Let them blah, let them voice their rubbish because we don't care. At the end of the day, we'll still be the same people, and that's exactly what happened. We avoided all that. We didn't even bother listening to any of those negativity. We just continued on with our work. We continued on with our lives, and it just died down like that, And so I think I'll stop there for now, and we can have questions if there's anything. Thank you, Abdul.
Thank you, Joey. So yeah, remember, if you have any questions for Joey, you are welcome to send it in the chat box and we'll ask those questions. I wanted to ask something. You mentioned that in the very beginning, when COVID started and people started realizing what it was, there was a lot of blame put on the on the LGBT community. And I understand that this would put a lot of stress on people, to be constantly put on the pedestal of blame, that you are the reason we are having that. How had the LGBT community cope with the mental health, the stigma surrounding their being and being associated with COVID-19? What kind of support was present there, maybe be it from the government or from the civil society sector? So if you could expand on that a little bit.
One thing that was quite lucky about this was because I was still here in Tonga. I haven't left Tonga yet when that happened, and because we were in the middle of the consultation, so we totally went, just totally ignored it, and because that news actually happened while we were doing the consultation, and we had members of each and every NGO. We're not talking about just LGBT consultation. We're talking about members of parliament. We are talking about parliamentarians. We had the prime minister. We had the speaker, the Lord Speaker, in the house at the convention center when this happened. And one of our presentations, we brought it up in one of our what you call presentation, and I actually mentioned that this is the kind of mentality that we don't want to see, being blamed, being tarnished, being tormented by negative people. But throughout the consultation, there was a lot of group discussions and overall discussions on how we can all work together to stop that kind of negativity, and it helped a lot because we had quite a few of the evangelists that went against us. They were actually present over there, and anything to do with with changing the laws and all that, they were totally for it, changing the words, that amending the laws and all that, just because that conversation went on, and then right after that, then we had our weekend. That weekend we had our retreat, and it was a chance to speak to our members. We have over 100 something just here in the main island, members but not all of them were able to be at the retreat. But one of the main things that we actually did in that retreat was to be able to have a lot of well-being and self-care, mental health, you know, sessions for them to be able to, think clearly. Not only that, but to teach themselves that there are better things to do than being negative to those that are, being negative towards us. And there's a lot of things that our team, that Agate and the team did over here while I was away, that actually helped our team, um, to be able to survive, you know. And one thing that we were able to help out with was, there was funding from the Give Out from London, and APTN, on COVID assistance for the, for some of the um, some of the organizations from the Pacific. And I think Fiji was part of it too, and Samoa. But we were able to buy quite a lot of essential stuff to help out with those members and their families, And when they see that happening, that we're actually, where we're out there dividing all the goods that we had to all the homes, that actually helped a lot, So it didn't really make them feel that even though they lost their jobs, they're not gonna, because majority, some of our members, that family actually depends on that member, on our members' income, and with that little love and care from the association and donors, it really helped out, really helped out a lot, So yeah, hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Joey. That was a very good, detailed explanation. I think I've got a few questions that have come in the chat, and I promised to ask those. I've just got a few more to cover with terms of on COVID-19. One of the things that has come out that has been documented is the increase in violence against women and vulnerable communities in countries with lockdown due to job losses. Members of the community have had to move in with their families because of the financial situation. What has been the case with regards to this in Tonga, where I understand that the relationship between the LGBT community and households, because of the religious belief, is a bit tough on the community? That is what I understand. So is there cases of abuse, be it physical, be it emotional, be it verbal, that you have come across?
Well, I don't think we've ever come across anything like that, because majority of our members live, those who are living in a relationship. I know for sure there's two of them that lives in town because of their jobs, which they were okay. They didn't lost their jobs. Those two couple didn't lost their jobs, but the ones that lost their jobs were ones that lived with their families. And I don't think there was any hate or anything from those families. The only thing that was affected was because they depend so much on those members and their jobs, it affected their lives from, their everyday lives, how they were a bit worried about how they're going to continue on, with buying food and all that. But I think there was not much, I mean, hate crime or anything or any, um, apart from, from that, from what happened at the beginning of COVID, on social media. But it just died down like that because over here, because we didn't bother arguing back with all those people.
Okay. I also wanted to ask, I understand that Tonga is having their vaccination drives, and there has been, so LGBT people have significantly lower health outcomes due to the stigma and discrimination and the accessibility to health services. How has this affected the vaccination plans for the LGBT community? Is there some barriers that they're facing in accessing this essential health service right now in terms of vaccination or other help in terms of health?
No, I'll be very honest. The Ministry of Health has been very, very good. They, you know, those that are around that age that are allowed to be to have their vaccination has done their vaccination without any hesitation from the ministry at all. Um, and we try and encourage most of those, of our, I mean, majority of our members that are in that age group to make sure that they go and have their vaccination um, shots. But as far as any discrimination from the ministry or because during the COVID vaccination, um, it was between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Police that were working together in every single um, uh, center, and there was nothing. I haven't heard any bad reporting or anything from the members about any discrimination or any hesitation from the ministry. They've been very good over here.
Okay. And so what are the plans in building back better for communities as countries around the region? In Tonga, they continue with their vaccination plan. How are their socio-economic policies to help those people who have lost jobs? For example, you've mentioned that members of the LGBTI community in Tonga have mostly or to a large extent been engaged with the hospitality industry. And obviously that has been affected due to the close down of borders. And Tonga, I think, has extended that to, I think, March 2022. So
Yeah.
what are the plans or support mechanisms in place, either by government agencies or the civil society sector, in trying to help these communities, uh, build themselves, their families better, get jobs back again?
Um, at the moment, our curfew, it was because I think majority of the problem was because of the curfew. There was none of the, majority of the restaurants, the bars, the hotels were closed on certain um, times, and now our curfew it's not lifted, it's still there, but it's from 12 o'clock at night till 5 o'clock in the morning. And most of the hotels are up and running now. The only two hotels that are not actually on is the Talanoa and Talanoa Hotel, and also the Scenic, which is the Kupesi, it's called the Kupesi Hotel now at the airport. Those hotels are still closed because of the repatriation flights and the passengers that those are the quarantine hotels. But all the other hotels and restaurants and everything are all open now. So majority of our, we still have some that are still out of a job, but what we've been doing is get them to involve in projects that we have, because we don't want to dwell on or wait for the government to do anything, because it's this year is election year, and they're all just busy um, with the preparation for the elections, and even even though they're the only thing that we're a bit disappointed with is because we were lobbying for change, to recommend changing our laws and all that for this year. Unfortunately, there's no bills at all that will be accepted to any, no matter from any department or any government or any NGO anywhere um, uh, in Tonga. So none of the bills are being accepted to go into Parliament. But when it comes to jobs, I don't know whether the government is doing as much as they should to be able to, get things going in the, the economy to go up. However, there still seem to be um, quite a lot of things happening, nationally, for people to have been. The only thing good about it, there's no social distancing or anything like that at the moment. Um, Plus, we're still going on with, and this year we decided to do the Miss Galaxy pageant, um, and we we seem to be getting along well with getting sponsorships and that. It doesn't seem that the only thing that we know for sure that there's a lot of there's a lot of things that are being cancelled. A lot of national events that are being cancelled because of COVID, because they expect people to come from overseas to those ones, especially the Miss Halala pageant, the national beauty pageant they have. They've cancelled that this year. They cancelled it last year. They cancelled it again this year. So you can tell there's quite a lot of things that affected. However, what we've been doing is to reaching out to companies that that our members were working at to re-employ them, to give their jobs back if things are moving forward with their companies. And if there's nothing that can be done by those companies, then we'll reach out to other companies so they can help out. But it hasn't really stopped us from doing our work and keeping going with our projects and everything. So yeah.
Uh, Thank you, Joey. So I've got a question here, and before I pose that question, this is about polykefu, and I was asked that since this is a sensitive topic, I just want to give a disclaimer that one, if Joey does not wish to answer this question, that's totally fine. And two, uh, please be mindful that this may trigger emotions and trauma. So be very mindful as you're listening in to the question. The question that I have with me is, with what has happened with Polykefu, how is the LGBT community? So just let me see here. That this year has been more difficult with the tragic passing of Polly, who did such incredible work for the Tongan Ladies Association and Tonga Red Cross. The question is, has their death stirred up fears of human security for young LGBTQI youth or young ladies? And if so, how has Joey and the organization addressed this? So as I said, Joey, you're free not to answer this question if you don't want to.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. First of all, it's the workload, you know, and but what has what it has done was is sorry, um, it put a lot of fears to our members in going out, and there's still the ones, the stubborn ones that still goes out there, but it seemed to teach quite a lot of our members on, making sure that they all go as a group, because that's what we suggest. It shouldn't affect their daily lives, but just to make sure that when they go out, they need to go as a group. They need to go as with another person just for their safety. But it has made quite a lot of our members in fear. It has put them in fear because they, because there hasn't been anything. There's no decision yet. There's no. He's still in prison, and what they're afraid of is that if he is given a, how many years or life sentence, he might be, given mercy on one of the, jubilees that we have, the later years and all that, and he will come back and do it again, because um, it's just hard, to actually think that this is happening in Tonga. We're always thinking that Tonga is the best. It's always free, it's always safe, but it has changed a lot of things in our platform. Um, we miss Polly so much, and but it hasn't stopped us for fighting for what we care about most in life. Um, but we're still waiting for the court case to happen, to see what's happening. That's what everybody's waiting for, and especially the family. It's quite hard for us to talk about Polly at the moment because there's nothing that we can do, and not only that, we don't want to trigger anything that the family might think that we're using Polly as our, tool to change things. So it's been it's been difficult, but it's very difficult for me because here I'm thinking that my workload is just starting to go, and here I'm thinking, oh, I have 3 more years and I'm going to start retiring. It looks like it's not going to happen, but yeah. But yes, that's what's happening. I hope I answer as much as I can.
Thank you, Joey. Yeah, and I apologize a lot for the loss that Tonga and the Tongan Ladies Association has faced. I've got a few questions on that, but I don't think I want to ask anymore. I don't think we need to expand on that anymore. One of the other questions that's come on another topic to me is, hi Abdul, question for Joey. Are there mental health organizations or services currently available for the LGBT communities and individuals experiencing mental health distress or trauma, especially during this pandemic? So are there any support groups or civil society organizations which looks after the mental health of anybody, be it LGBT or any other persons, when it comes to COVID? I understand that the lockdown and the job losses are affecting individuals and their family members. So if you could, maybe this would be an opportunity to list down existing mental health services that whoever is on the call or listens to this video after could, access in Tonga.
Thank you. At the moment, there is one organization which is really under the Ministry of Health, and there's a person there that actually runs the mental health organization, and it's one of our colleagues, one of our best colleagues, Leonidasi Hoponoa, and he and the Lord Cardinal has been having quite a lot of conversations on TV on mental health, especially during COVID. You know, they always, every week there is a program. But when it comes to LGBT, majority of the time, we do the counseling, we do the mental health treatment. If there's any mental health case that will happen, it's us that does that for our members. Majority, I mean, mainly because they don't feel comfortable on going to the Ministry of Health. However, that is the only, I think that would be the only group or mental health assistance that we have access to. Otherwise, majority of the work on and especially counseling will be done by myself and another counselor from the Tonga Leiti Association, who has been, working closely with the mental health side from the Ministry of Health. But one of the things that we try and do is when we have retreats, we bring in someone from that department to come in and run a mental health session when we do our retreat. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Joey. Just a small message from Mickey, who said that she's sending you love and the Tongan Ladies Association love from her side, and accept all love for those who are on this call and will watch this later on YouTube also. The other question I want to ask is, with COVID, I understand that Tongan Ladies Association exists as the NGO, as a civil society organization, and you had your strat plans, maybe you had plans for 2020, 2021, but COVID's really disrupted a lot of what lots of organizations and individuals have planned. So what are the current priorities of the Tongan Ladies Association in terms of the advocacy work, the lobbying, the helping of the community that they're doing? So what are the current priorities that you are focusing on right now through your organizations?
At the moment, we're actually going to the Babao group for the law reform consultation to be run there during the month of June, and also the HIV second quarter HIV testing and awareness program. As for the law reform, changing or amending the laws and all that bill that we wanted to we decided to, because there's no bill that's been accepted to Parliament, we decided to continue on the consultations right throughout the year. And not only that, there's quite a lot of through the funding from Global Fund, HIV, we have a quarterly HIV testing for all the islands, and that's been continued. The strategic plan was successfully completed because of COVID, we couldn't get into one place, and I was stuck in Australia. They were here. but they were able to, we were able to work online, and successfully they completed our next strategic plan for 2020 to 26, 26 to 25. I can't read. Oh gosh. And not only that, another one of the things that we are working on is the um, Parliament has asked us to translate the Soji language um, into Tongan, and that has been done. It's been successfully done. It was done at the beginning of this year. We're just waiting for Parliament to adopt it, to be able to adopt it, and to launch it in December at the International Human Rights Day. Um, so the consultations that are going to be held right through the year, part of it will be educating our people in every district on SOGI, and it'll be led by myself and one of the LGBT lawyers from the Crown Law in the 4 districts here, and the Vava'u group, the Papai group, and Ewa. But I think that's pretty much what's happening throughout the year. Apart from the Miss Galaxy this year, we're holding that on the 14th, 15th, 16th of July. And one of the things that we found that really worked from last year, because there was no communications between us and the community, we brought in the ladies, the women from all parts of Tonga and we call it the Miss Galaxy Market Day. And we brought in all the women from all parts of Tonga, all the women from the community, to bring in handicrafts and everything to sell. We provide the venue, we provide the booth for them, and then they come in and sell their products. And then we find sponsors for prices and all that. This year, we're actually opening this year with that program. And it's more like giving back to our community, then while that market day is going on, there'll be a lot of advocacy programs going on during those 3 days. So I think that's pretty much what we are, if I remember correctly, what's going to happen this year.
Right. So we are reaching the 1 hour mark. I had a few questions in the chat box. If anybody else has any questions to pose to Joey, please keep them coming in. We'll go on for maybe another 10, max 15 minutes. One of the questions that's come in is, Tongan Ladies Association has been there for almost, I think, 3 decades now. What are some challenges, some milestones, and some successes that you have had over the years with the existence of the association and the lobbying and the advocacy work that you have been doing?
Even though we haven't decriminalized homosexuality law, but we have been able to, ease off quite a lot of things, a lot of, and not only that, but being supported by, being noticed and supported by the government is another thing, because about 30 years ago, you will never see any government people coming to attend any LGBT event, But now we're working closely, we work closely with all the national, non-government organizations. We work a lot more with the women's organizations and the youth, And not only that, one of the things that we were fortunate to be in this year was oh no, last year, sorry, was the youth uh, parliament that went on at Parliament, and so they actually this time they actually included LGBT to have a seat, and one of our members were actually the noble of uh, uh, one of the islands, and happened to be one of our lesbians was the Speaker of the House, and you know and that's one of the something that we never seen before, that we've never ever seen before, that to be recognized like that. And especially when it comes to the youth, because when it comes to the youth here, majority of the youth groups over here are from churches, and for them to be able to work closely and being able to be accepted like that, that's a great achievement. That's a milestone. But one thing that we were able um, to do was being able to work closely with the Ministry of Justice. In a lot of ways, in a lot of things that we're trying to change. Um, you know, there's been a lot of assistance from that ministry, and we're able to work closely with the Ministry of Police, and the defense has been very helpful in during COVID for the work that we do. Uh, but one thing that we still find that hard is um, seeing new evangelist churches coming into our island. Especially I know this happens in Fiji a lot, and some of the outer islands, Pacific Islands. They seem to be, they're the ones that are actually out there preaching against us, you know, and that's what we have that's happening over here. And we're having a lot a lot of stigma and discrimination from them, because they try, and because they can't reach the majority age of 50 up, because most of our elderly now are already in the original churches, the Catholics, the Mormons, and they're more accepting now than these new churches that we're going through. And they're the ones those are the challenges that we're still facing, are the new evangelist churches that are coming into our shores, and not only that, but the breakout churches from the main ones, Um, yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you, Joey. I have on the call Lionel, and I was wondering if I could just bring Lionel up for a minute uh, to just give a brief, maybe 1 or 2 minute uh, offer that he wants to give to the speakers here on mental health. Sally, could we have Lionel unmuted? Sorry, my screen's frozen as usual, like last time, so I'll have to ask Sally to do this before I get Joey back on. I put one more question, two more questions actually from the audience. So if Lionel's online, you can go ahead.
Bula Abdul, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Lionel.
Bula Joey, beautiful as ever. Good to hear from you again after a long time.
Yes, yes.
Our condolences, Youth Champs for Mental Health would like to offer our condolences for your loss. It's really shocking to hear what happened, and our prayers are with you and the PLA. We've been providing support virtually over the last few months, or because of COVID, we've been closed down, but we've been offering support as well to some of the young Tongan youth online. They've been reaching out on Facebook, and I thought, as a resource, if any of the TLAs would like somebody neutral to speak to, we could offer them counseling support online, and that's pro bono. So we're always there. We're always happy to work with TLA, and we're always happy to help you in terms of mental health support. And I think we are working towards the final report for the SOGES project that we had worked on earlier, and that should be coming out soon. But our prayers and our messages of hope to you and the team, we're always going to be here online ready to support.
Thank you very much, Lionel. Thank you. You're always in our thoughts too.
So positive energy to you and the team.
Thank you very much. And we actually
Thank
talk
you
about
for that, Lionel.
art.
No, Joey, go ahead. Sorry if I'm a bit lagging. It's just that my internet's slow. So if you're speaking, I get on a little bit later. So please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that to thank Lionel, because we know Lionel and the group from Fiji has been there for us to. Lionel and Felicia from New Zealand has been offering mental health assistance or any counseling or anything that was that we need, especially on mental health. They've been there, and we know that you're always there, Lionel. Thank you so much. We talk about you and the group frequently. You don't know, maybe your ears is buzzing, but we've always been talking about you guys, about the work that you do, and it's something that we need to, consider. Hopefully, that we'll be able to put that into our agenda too, to be able to do something exactly the same as your group is doing, because we know we've worked with Lionel on anti-discrimination and bullying, anti-bullying campaign in schools, and it was a very successful survey research that we did. But thank you, Lionel.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Lionel. I have two questions left. We are reaching a little over 1 hour, and we intend to finish this at the 1 hour 15 minutes mark. One of the questions that came is that how do you think development partners can be more effective partners with the CSOs like the Tongan Ladies Association in the work that you do on the ground? And what would you, heading Tongan Ladies Association, ask of the development partners as new development funding or any other forms of support roll out in the next year?
I think if there is whatever resources, because this is one of the things that we always suffer from, is because we're always being under somebody, when it comes to funding or resource or anything from any development partners. If there's anything at all over there that could help us, with the work that we do, for them to reach out, to let us know, because there are times that we don't know any kind of that there are assistance out there until someone turns around and say, "Oh, but have you ever tried this?" Because with me, I'm constantly online looking, for any assistance that we can get. But at the same time, we offer our help to anybody else, any other organization out there. If there is any way that we can assist in, with your organization or anything like that, we're more than welcome to. You're more than welcome to ask us anything. But for the development partners, I suggest that, I always say this. I might sound like a biatch, on this, but Get out of your um, uh, um, comfort zone and please reach out to us. It's just a matter of a call or a message and tell us if there is anything that is there for us to be able to reach our goal, you know. And not only that, one thing um, that I've always wanted to say. I mean, I've always said to majority of the funders out there, you cannot just give us your assistance with your resources and that without coming to look at what we do in person. You know, you have to come to our shores and look at the work that we do so you know that the money that you're giving us is well worth it. Even though the Pacific is so vast, it's so expensive, you know, it's more expensive to travel around the Pacific than traveling in Europe, but they need to come to our shores to look at the work that we do. We don't just talk, we put action into everything that we do, and for those of you out there that that are listening, if there's anything out there that you might be able to help us with, please reach out to us because we're always seeking for help, and especially this time of COVID, um, we're always reaching out for people to help in any way they can. I think that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Joey. I have one last question in the chat, which is you mentioned that, with COVID and the blame that was being put on the LGBT community, somebody has asked with regards to cyberbullying, how can young LGBT community members deal with the cyberbullying, the stigma that is being perpetuated through the use of social media on the community, the way they choose to be, their dressing, their lifestyle. So how can young LGBT members, how can they get over this? How can they learn how to use maybe social media better, or how to interact or not interact with trolls? What advice would you have for them?
I think the only way that, I mean, the way that we do it over here, I don't know whether it will work in your region, in the other Pacific Islands. But what we did is teaching our members not to actually argue with that, especially cyberbullying. Avoid getting back to them, answering back, swearing, what you do. I mean, I do it constantly every single week. I put out a post over there that will really, that people will see that you care about the work that you do. But don't go out there and swear, I mean, saying all these bad words against, and then you'll end up, the only thing that you'll end up doing is ruining your reputation. Because one thing that you have to remember, we from the Pacific, we come from small islands. We're practically, literally related to everybody. And every single time you say something stupid or something negative about the person that's going against you, you might end up saying something about their mother or father, which they didn't say anything to you or her sister. It will affect that relationship, So the only way you can do it is either avoid it, close, I mean, don't go back to those pages, block them, and just continue on your work. Because mentally, physically, if you keep arguing with those people, it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you at all. Physically, mentally, and spiritually, do it in a positive way. Always put out status that are very positive, that will help you help others. You know, be strategic about what you do on social media. Do it in a way that will build your self-esteem. You will be able to build others' self-esteem, other LGBT, the new generations that are coming up. You know, you have to be very, very careful on what you put out there on social media. You know, especially when it comes to the Pacific, because we know practically everybody. And if they don't know, if you don't know them, maybe they know you. I mean, majority of the people in Tonga, they know me, but I don't know them. But it doesn't give, you know, me the right to turn around and gust them because I don't like what they're saying. You know, freedom of speech is freedom of speech. It's social media. They'll say anything that they want, but it doesn't make me a better person when I turn around and give them all the F words and all those things, and I forget that I have families that are in that page, you know? And because Tonga is, I mean, the way that we do things here, we always advise our members to remember, even though we're so butch, we're so queer, we're so, you know, but it doesn't really give us, we don't have, we won't get the respect that we want to get if we turn around and argue like that. You know, with me personally, every time say anybody says anything negative to me, I just smile back and I say, I love you too. Because it's them that are gonna get lines on their forehead. I don't get a line next, you know, when I wake up the next day. You know, I just smile and I thank God every day that I'm still alive. And because they don't feed you. You're the person, you and your family are the ones that are feeding yourself. So that's all I wanted to say about that. And I hope it will help.
Thank you. Thank you, Joey. To our audience, please don't leave now. We want to have a selfie, a e-selfie on Zoom. With that, I think we have come to the end of our discussion. There is, again, still a lot of things to talk about. And thank you, Joey, for taking out the time to have a conversation with us and give us an insight to what things look like in Tonga for the LGBT community. For me, I think I learned a lot. I know of Tonga through my friends, but we haven't had this conversation of LGBT community in Tonga. So this was pretty insightful for me. If Tongan youths are on this call, Joey's here, Tongan Leiti Association is here. Hopefully this conversation gives you an insight on how you can be better allies and support the work that the association is doing for the LGBT community. Because at the end of the day, the base of all of this is human rights. Everybody is equal, and the rules application of values should not depend on anything apart from the fact that we are all human beings. So